Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by CoolSomething.com, mana traders, as well as Twitch subs and Patreon supporters just like you. My name is Evan Irwin, and get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Power Dragon.
What's up, everybody? And I have to say, Standard is looking pretty good after the Pro Tour.
Very nice. Ruben Bressner.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, everything is lovely. You know,
People were excited by the Standard metagame, so...
Oh, for sure. I was expecting us to talk mostly about the Pro Tour and what that meant, but we'll get to that stuff here shortly. Yep. Now, if you missed our pre-show, which went pretty wild this week, patrons and subs to this channel get access to all that stuff early, or if you join us here live every week, you can check it out an hour before we get started here. And we kick it off with our first pick and our code push to CoolStuffInc.com. Save 5% off your order by using promo code MAGICMICS in checkout. It does not stack with customer orders, but that's okay. But you get 5% off everything, supplies, limited stuff. You want some packs, you want some boxes, you want some singles, go for it. And we also have right now these super cool limited edition shirts. If you're listening to us, we have 3 different shirts here. One says 100% certified jank. One says my tummy hurts and my hand is bad with the crying goblin. And the other one says, it's a little hard to read, please don't target me or any permanent I control, I will cry. And has a...
That cat looks so sad.
It has a very sad cat. It's supposed to be a very, very sad cat. So don't target me.
That's
okay?
hilarious. I love it.
Yeah. So our social media guy, Steven, God bless him. One of the funniest guys I know. I love it. And I can just tell him, I'm like, Steven, go be funny. And he just is funny. And he can just make these little silly jokes like this. And it works. And it's great. And so we're selling these shirts. Go to CoolStuffInc.com/shirts and you will see the options there. It goes from small to 4XL to even in bosses like myself. If y'all are looking for a shirt, it's rad. All right. And we support your favorite streamer with your suggestions in the show to see who we rate tonight on Twitch.tv. Thanks to that sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. Use promo code MagicMics. All right. We want to talk about Modern Horizons 3. Now, generally, as a rule, as with most of the people in our kind of industry space, whatever you want to call it, when there are leaks from potato phones, and why are they still potatoes in 2024? I don't know, but they're all from potato phones whose grandmothers could take better pictures. But we generally don't cover them because it's a little uncouth. It takes away a lot of the pizzazz. You know what I mean? Like it's just not cool for a variety of reasons. Yeah. And so, Wizards generally kind of takes the same. I've just like, we're not going to address it, but sometimes it gets a little egregious. And it got to the point where Wizards actually did address it in a article called Modern Horizons 3 Leaks, Nulldrifters, and You. And they go over a lot of cards. And in fact, just so you know, as a guy who tries to pay attention to this stuff all the time, there were leaks in here that I had not seen. And I was very much blown away by. Let's go ahead and get started. We'll talk about some of these wild cards. Flare of Denial is a 2 blue and a generic mana for a rare instant. It counters target spell. It is a cancel. However, it has a very magical sentence on it that says you may sacrifice a non-token blue creature rather than pay this spell's mana cost. There is a whole cycle of these spells for free that you sacrifice a non-token, blank color creature to get what they're going to do. And this one seems absolutely bananas. And it doesn't, I don't know if it's actually going to get older formats for a variety of reasons, the creature they would sacrifice and so on. But it also looks like they're trying once again to run up that hill to make Merfolk good in Modern. And this is yet another would be good in Merfolk in Modern.
Sure. You know what? I actually was a little disappointed to find out this was a cycle because I so badly wanted to call this card Force of Bill. I wanted to so bad, and then I found out like every color's getting on. I'm like, nah, never mind. That joke's dead in the water already.
But it is a super cool card, though.
Very cool card. Unfortunately, I'm very upset. There are not any blue color identity cards that trigger when they die at 1 mana.
At 1 mana.
Oh, I was gonna say at 1 mana. That's
at 1 mana.
Yeah.
Right. It's so unfortunate. There just isn't one. There is there is one that costs a blue mana, but it has Devoid. So the only salvage drone is a 1/1 for 1 with Devoid and Ingest, and when it dies, you draw and discard. So this, unfortunately, there aren't a ton of things to sacrifice it for super value. However, there are still things like Judge's Familiar and Curse Catcher and your various sundry flying ends that would be very good.
Crazy card, though.
Yes.
When you're talking about for Merfolk or whatever, and it's not even a conditional counter spell, it's just like counter anything. So the really, really crazy card. This is a card that will get played. It's just a matter of like, are we playing 2 of them? Are we playing 3 of them? Like what decks want these?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have any conditions like, on my turn, on your turn, etc.
Yeah.
It's like just whenever. Counter any spell you want. Psychic creature, you're good.
By the way, the alternate art on that, beautiful.
Very dope.
Like just crazy looking.
So we shall see if that makes its way into various decks. Moving on here to Chthonian Nightmare. Recurring Nightmare says hello and is also still on the reserve list and is also still banned in Commander, and you better thank your lucky stars for that. Chthonian Nightmare is our energy version. It's a black and a colorless, or a black and a generic mana for a rare enchantment that says when it enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy counters, pay X energy, sacrifice a creature, return it to its owner's hand, return target creature card with mana value X from your graveyard to the battlefield, activate only as a sorcery. And because you have to pay energy, you can't just turn 1 creature, turn to this thing, get Gristlebrand in the graveyard somehow, and then get Gristlebrand in play, because you have to pay the energy for the mana value. So it is capped in that way. And
this is better for small creature decks.
It is much better for small creature decks because you can do silly things like that. But I also wanted to riff on what we kind of touched on the pre-show, which is this is the first card that where I was like, man, this feels like Time Spiral ++.
Yeah.
Where it's a riff on a very well-known card doing a very well-known thing, but in a different way and in a unique way, and a way that kind of feels like sexy and powerful because it's still doing that thing, but it's doing it in such a different way, you don't know if it's any good or not. You're like, maybe, and that maybe is so exciting, and that's what's so cool about this card.
What am I looking at in that artwork?
I don't
like a tomb of some kind, maybe.
Something? I mean, at least in the extended art, it's kind of
like Chthonian.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Is it Chthonian?
It looks like a Throne of Geth. Is it bugs?
Maybe.
Is it bugs or is it Phyrexians? I can't really tell what this is.
I don't know. Just a weird thing that I'm just staring at the artwork going like, I have no idea what's happening.
Either way, what do you think about the card?
I think, the point of it being good for smaller creature decks does make it different than the card it's based on, which I think is a big deal. Do energy decks particularly want this if you're playing energy? Like, maybe they could probably be changed to where they could take advantage of it. But it is a cool card because I think it's one you can at least start to build around, and it probably helps some other decks come to the forefront more than just like be shoved into an existing deck, which I'm always a favor of.
Yeah, it also costs 2 mana, which is huge. There are, unlike blue, there are a ton of black creatures that have cool dies effects and discard effects, and there are lots of ways to make this thing weird and good. So, you can make treasure tokens with a Shambling Ghast or something like that, I guess, and then just go to town with this card. And oh, by the way, if you're returning something smaller, you're getting more energy as you go. So if you return it to your hand with the first one and bring back a 2-drop, then the next card you can bring back, it gives you 4 energy to bring back a 4-drop if you want to. Right. So I could see this with, for example, like a Yawgmoth makes a lot of sense in that sort of the black-green sacrifice triggers deck.
Yeah,
that could see play here for sure.
That grindy, rock style, mid-range deck. Card's super, super rad. Now this next one is this card is bananas. I can't fully explain to you how dangerous is a word. I don't know. Ugin's Labyrinth is a mythic land. Okay, already in a very expensive set. This mythic land is going to be very expensive. It has imprint. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile a colorless card with mana value 7 or greater from your hand. That is any wild variety of Eldrazi. That is Karn, by the way. That is 7 mana Karn can do that. And it says tap to add a colorless mana, an actual wingding. If a card is exiled with Ugin's Labyrinth, add 2 colorless mana instead, or tap : return the exiled card to its owner's hand. when you're talking about no downside, when you're talking about the downside is 0.
Yeah.
It is wild to think of how crazy push this thing is, because this is what's called a soul land. This is a soul ring land that you can get on turn 1. You can chalice on turn 1 in legacy or whatever.
Yeah.
This card is just crazy exciting for a whole variety of reasons and dangerous for the exact same set of reasons.
Yeah.
I feel
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
I feel like this is probably stronger, like you're saying, in a legacy or vintage or whatever, even more so than modern. Like, I think there's some big things you can do with it, but it feels like the space might be better in older formats. I don't really know, though. It'll be interesting to see.
I agree that the space is better, but you don't have competition in modern. You have Ancient Tomb and City of Traders in Legacy. You've got ways to make a bunch of extra mana in Legacy. You don't got a bunch in modern, and this is a way to do it. It doesn't even say that you have to only play 7 drops. It doesn't even say that you can only cast cards with colorless mana in them. It's just 2 mana. So Chalice on 1 on turn 1 on the play in modern is now a thing you can do that you couldn't do before without like a Simian Spirit Guide or a Gemstone Cavern. So this card's very real. Didn't necessarily need that last part.
No.
But because it has that last part, it lets you do what Gemstone Caverns couldn't, which is recoup your card advantage once you don't need the mana advantage.
Right.
Yeah, I also found it weird that on Twitter there were people like excited that you could like turn 1 Scion of Draco with this. And I was like,
okay.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I guess, but that feels like such weirdly small thinking.
Yeah.
With like
we're gonna go Leyline of the Guild Pact.
The Leyline of the Guild Pact.
Leyline of the Guild
Pact.
Pact.
Just like,
exile a Scion, play a Scion.
but I'm looking at that going like, what does that deck actually look like?
That's
like you're playing something that's playing 4 Scions, 4 Guild Pack, 4 this thing. Like, what even deck is doing that?
Yeah.
You know what we're in right now?
Like,
you know what era of Magic we're in right now? Because we've seen this over the last couple of years. We are in the it didn't need that last part era of Magic cards.
Yes. Yeah,
there are so many Magic cards that we read where they're super awesome, and they got this one thing at the end where you're like, you didn't need to do that for me to get excited about this Magic card.
And when it dies, it deals 3 damage, right? Like, okay, cool.
And draw a card, right? Whatever.
Right.
Or
and it pays for itself. Or,
Right, you're not actually losing that Karn. You're just getting all this mana up front, and you get the Karn back later. Like
right, you're hiding it from their thought seasons. Actually.
Yes, that's wild to me, and it's nuts. Urza's Cave is also an insane card, in my opinion, for a different reason, not just raw power. Urza's Cave is an uncommon land, which is a land Urza's Cave, by the way, which is kind of awesome because Urza is a land type and Cave is a land type, and it just works. It taps add a colorless mana, 3 generic taps, sack it, search your library for a land card, put it on the battlefield tap, then shuffle. Land card. Glacial Chasm for those people who do that stuff. You know, every card in Commander, every land in Commander that you can possibly play. Not to mention things like Dark Depths or whatever you want to do in older formats. This card is incredible. It's a freaking miracle. It's uncommon, quite frankly, because this thing would be $1 million if it were mythic. Like if it was just rare,
it'd be $20.
Yes.
If it was just rare.
Thank you, Wizards, for not making this rare because
honestly, this still in the long run might end up being one of those like $8 or $9 uncommon.
Yeah, this is the perfect type of card that will be rare in a future master set because they're like, oh, sorry, it's $15 a copy and we should have known that, you know? And that's how.
Yeah, and this card is very exciting in a variety of decks, not just Urza's decks, which obviously it's very good there. And I suppose it could be played in a cave deck because why not? Why not put it in a cave deck? But this is also very good for like Mana Bond, Life from the Loam lands decks, right? If you have a Crucible of Worlds, this just gets you a land from your deck every turn.
Yep, get you whatever land you want every time.
And so there are engines here. It's not that expensive. It replaces itself. Card's great.
I could see a world where solid. A large chunk of the Commander decks are going to be playing this. Just as the one, I mean, it goes and gets any type of utility land you need. If you have something that helps you combo.
Yeah, right.
Like,
it doesn't matter. Whatever. And not to mention, there's no sorcery speed on this.
Oh,
It's
true.
Even more
Leave
fun,
it up.
in Commander, you could play this when you already have met your conditions for a hideaway land.
Sure.
Right? You'll get the thing. So now it's almost like you get a tutor for whatever you want on top of just getting the other land into play.
I'm just saying this. I'm telling you, this card, I was just like, oh my God.
That's very fun.
You want to talk about a mythic uncommon from the pack, from the moment I've seen it, I'm like, that card is going to be very expensive. So let's try to move on here a little bit faster so we don't go over every last thing. White of the Reliquary is a great riff on Night of the Reliquary. Yeah, it's cute. It's fun. I'm going to keep moving here.
Yeah.
They even had that throwback art, though, that's like done the same way, which is really cool.
Oh, it's lovely. And Spawn Gang Commander is just like Siege Gang Commander, but it makes Eldrazi spawn. However, for 1 and a colorless mana, has to be a colorless, sack an Eldrazi, any Eldrazi, it deals 2 damage to one target, which is awesome. Kappa Cannoneer. Why in God's name are they bringing this to Modern? This card has been a legacy staple. Okay. And vintage. Kappa Cannoneer is a blue and 5 generic mana for a rare artifact turtle warrior creature. It is a 4/4 with improvise. Your artifacts can help cast it. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities pays for 1 generic mana. It has Ward of 4, which might as well be hexproof. Whenever it or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Kappa Cannoneer, and it can't be blocked this turn. Lord God, it doesn't say do this once a turn like a lot of the cards we've seen these days do. It doesn't hold back. It just keeps going. This card is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, this may be a card being placed in to raise up the value of like the Arcbound Ravager decks or something.
Probably.
Potentially.
Yeah. I don't see why not. Like they got,
because those are pretty much fallen off at this point, and like this would be an easy way to give them a boost.
Yeah, and I mean, if that's what, and I think that's what they're trying to do, bring back those old decks, give them that tool that they're now lacking that they need because the metagame shifted or whatever. If this is what Arcbound Ravager needs,
sure.
Sweet.
I mean, this is like what Affinity became, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And Meltdown on the other side of it is an awesome card to bring into Modern because you just get rid of all the artifact lands and stupid garbage and just going.
I've cast so many Meltdowns when I was like 13. It's great. Card's awesome. Get rid of your Voltaic Key and your Grim Monolith, idiot.
Philia, Exuberant Shepherd is the best boy, our new best boy. To blink things, it does a weird thing in that it blinks another target non-land permanent when it attacks. At the beginning of the next end step, you return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control.
Right.
If it was yours, you get a +1/+1 counter on Philia.
It's a slow blink.
Am I saying that right?
It's a Gale Powder Mage. But on a 2/2 flash. Very good.
2/2 flash,
You know what I learned when they posted this card? That a lot of people don't know that Corgis are actually one of the original shepherd breeds of dogs. Which is why it's called a shepherd. But like a lot of people arguing like, this isn't a shepherd. I'm like, dude, there's a lot of different shepherd cards or dogs that are classified as shepherds.
Oh yeah. I mean, look at that profile pic. I mean,
amazing.
I love that they've gone back and went back to the profile pic thing because I think it's brilliant and I love it. Nulldrifter was one of the cards that kind of inspired this happening to start with. It's a 7 mana 4/4. When you cast this spell, draw 2 cards. It has Flying Annihilator 1. Remember Annihilator, y'all who played during Rise?
Yeah.
Amazing ability.
The fact that this doesn't have Emerge confused me.
Well, I mean, it's
I was expecting Emerge instead of Evoke. Or both. Maybe.
Well, I mean, it's Nulldrifter.
I mean, it's Nulldrifter with Annihilator, right?
Right. It's Nulldrifter with Annihilator,
and a cast.
And you can't reanimate it to get the draws.
Right. It has Evoke of a blue and 2 generic mana, so which is the exact same as Nulldrifter. So, so you are technically casting the spell for its Evoke cost. Yeah. So you are getting the cards then, but you won't if you blink it because of that.
Right.
Cast it. Right. So that's kind of neat. Hero Glass, Erupting Nelkite. Look it up yourself. There's a lot of mana and a lot of words. Kudo King Among Bears, y'all. Green, white.
Hilarious.
2/2. Rare, legendary bear. Other creatures have base power and toughness 2/2 and are bears. In addition to their other types, they did it, everybody.
Amazing.
Go home.
We're all bears. Also, go to the profile picture for Kudo. Which is just extremely doofy and adorable. Makes me feel very good. I mean, both Kudo and Felian Felia are.
I mean, it is adorable. A literal hate bear.
Yeah.
It's the hatiest bear that ever hated a bear. I love it. I absolutely love this card. I think this card's amazing. It goes along with the Queen, of course, which is great. Null Elemental Blast. This card is brilliant.
Brilliant.
It's a colorless mana for an uncommon instant. Thanks for making it uncommon, by the way. Choose one, counter target multicolored spell, or destroy target multicolored permanent. Brings us back. It calls all the way back to the alphas, which is the best callbacks. And an amazing riff, like one of those cards that makes perfect sense, but it's still a great callback. Like that to me is almost the perfect type of design for a Modern Horizon set, which is it's cool, it's powerful, it's a callback. There's nostalgia there, but there's also power there. I can't wait to play with it.
Yeah.
This artwork also looks like an old He-Man villain, like sitting a blast tray at somebody. Like,
I wonder how many multicolored cards are in the format. I think that this card is good enough and playable enough, just killing Leyline of the Guild Pact.
Maybe.
Probably.
But, countering it. Well, you can't counter it.
Oh, that's right, because
zero
turns zero.
But you can destroy it immediately, which is nice. And you're able to counter things like the new white of the Reliquary. I don't know what else he's playing in this format, but I think that the domain deck is popular enough, being able to kill off territorial Kavus and Leyline of the Guild Pact.
You could sideboard it for stuff like the Ren and 6 that show up in places.
Oh, sure.
Things like that. So like it has use. I don't know if you main deck it, but
no.
But like Grist is still a thing, that people play.
Okay.
You can find slots for 2 or 3 of these in the sideboard.
So you have to ask yourself, is Tarmogoyf still amazing if it's 1 mana, but only looks at my graveyard? 1 black mana for a Nethergoyf. It's a mythic Lurgoyf, and I think it's mythic for a reason. It is a 1 black mana star/1+star, where their power and toughness are equal to the cards in your graveyard, with the different card types among cards in your graveyard. And it also has escape, because why not? For a black and 2 generic mana, you can exile any number of other cards from your graveyard with 4 or more card types among them to get it back. So if you can
cool phrasing.
Right. If you can recur Tarmogoyf by taking away Tarmogoyf's pumping power.
Yeah. If you can get a kindred enchantment and an artifact creature out of your graveyard, then you can bring Nethergoyf back. Yeah. This card's fine. Tarmogoyf was significantly better because it looked at both graveyards. I could terror my opponent's creature. I could Thoughtseize my opponent's sorcery. Sure. And that would grow the Tarmogoyf. This card's good. This card's it has the potential to be very powerful. But you do need to have a more dedicated deck as opposed to Tarmogoyf, where you just play Magic.
Yeah, that's like, you turn 1, I don't know, Fatal Push something, play Tarmogoyf. You at least have like a 2/3 already. Mm-hmm. Right? Like you don't necessarily have anything with the Nethergoyf yet.
Yeah.
Unless maybe you played a fetch land or something, I guess.
You want to fetch land, this is a 1/2, right? That's your opener. Is that good?
If you go fetch land Thoughtseize, and it's a 2/3 the next turn.
Right.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Like, I don't think it's spectacular.
Right.
But at that point, is it any better than Tarmogoyf?
Right, exactly.
I don't know.
That's the thing. Tarmogoyf's still larger.
Being half cost is a big deal.
Being half cost, they could not make it cheaper, right? They couldn't make it easier unless it was a Phyrexian cost.
Yeah.
So,
we're in trouble when they make
somebody will find a deck where this card's just busted, I bet.
Yes, for sure.
So the one last one I want to take a look at here. Actually, there's 2 more here, but the one I want to talk about is Winter Moon.
Yeah.
For some reason, people are not putting this together with Winter Orb. Seriously?
Right.
Winter Moon is 2 generic mana for a rare artifact that says players can't untap more than 1 non-basic land during their untap steps. Yes, please. Thank you. Yeah. I want to play mono white. I want to play mono red, and I want to punish you.
I've been saying this actual design needed to exist for like a long time.
Yeah. Sure. This is like Winter Orb, Blood Moon, back to basics, sort of all mixed together, which is really cool.
Yeah. I skipped over Orm's Chant. I'm sorry. I don't think it's going to do anything.
Yeah, probably not.
Orm's Chance, whatever. It's still been Safekeeper.
And same with Safekeeper. I don't think that those are
Safekeeper is a nice reprint, but
Safekeeper Dark Depths isn't legal, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, then probably not.
But either way, as much as I love Orm's Chant, it's one of the first cards I ran into when I came back to Magic. No. Final Act is interesting, but let's keep going on here to Planar Nexus. This is, first of all, a commander card. This is not going into Modern, but it's going into Legacy and Vintage, and an answer to a question today blew my mind, all right? Yeah. Planar Nexus is a rare land from one of the commander decks, whichever one it is. It is every non-basic land type. So it's not quite Rangeling, which was in the expansion that had every land type, but it's every non-basic land type. That includes cave, desert, gate, lair, locust, mine, power plant, sphere, tower, and Urza's. Let's hold on a second there. They said it says mine and power plant and tower, which means if you have any of them, power plant, Urza's mine, Urza's tower, and this on the battlefield, you have Urzatron. It counts as both types. You need just this.
Is that true?
Yes.
Because it counts as an Urza's, it counts as a power plant, and it counts as a mine.
Yes. Matt
so it counts as the Urza's mine and the Urza's tower.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yep.
Matt Tabak today confirmed all you need is this, and any Urza's piece works. And
that's
I'm
crazy.
Like, brains just blowing all over the walls. Oh my God. What is going to happen? I don't know.
That's crazy.
I mean,
that's really cool.
Even the Locust deck's got like cool and fun, right? That's scary. Make a bunch of mana.
Yeah.
Like, are the Urza decks played in Legacy and Vintage?
They're probably going to start.
Because I'm just like, I don't even know if they'd be competitive in that format.
I don't know, right? But like, man, when they're that easy, or the Locust decks, which are, I know, a thing from time to time. Yeah, when this card is wild, it's hard to
also
imagine.
Big middle finger to Final Act. Like, we just didn't need that.
Yeah,
it says destroy instead.
It's better,
exile.
but like, we didn't need yet another sweeper where you can choose like 52.
I'm okay with this in black in Commander. I'm okay with this one.
It is
actually
right. A 12 post apparently in Legacy is a thing. Says first time chatter. Thanks for hanging out. Final Act is a 6-mana rare sorcery in Commander that destroys all creatures. You choose one or more, destroy all creatures, destroy all planeswalkers, destroy all battles. That's the first time that's ever been on a Magic card. Exile all graveyards, and each opponent loses all counters. Another way to lose all poison counters, which is one of the things that they
opponent though.
Right, which is each opponent loses them, which is, again, in a multiplayer game, one of the ways you get poison counters off of your friends. And it's very rare to do that.
Also, getting rid of experience counters is a big deal.
That's true, which is awesome. So, that's a lot. No, but it's also very exciting, I think. And even if it is, great rates, the set, Modern Horizons 3 is going to continue to be exciting for that very reason.
For sure.
I mean, are any of us surprised though? Like, we all knew this months ago from the minute it got announced, right?
Oh yeah. And the price tag, is not low. These are very premium price packs. And, collectibles and all these good cards, whether they're reprints or not, are all very cool and sexy and exciting. All the elementals, for example, are going to be on the special guests and so on. And shout out to 00 Busy Hands for their 69th month being subscribed to the channel. That's just very nice. Giggity.
There it is. Nice.
Very nice. We're on the first picker to gather the Townsfolk thanks to our sponsor, Mana Traders, the best tool to enhance your Magic Online experience. Use the code MagicMikes_8N4 November 4 for 10% off your next subscription with Mana Traders. Tell them we sent you, and we appreciate them supporting the show. All right. Now, up first here is the Pro Tour Thunder Junction. I got to see a lot of it. Not every moment of it. I had my children this past weekend, but I got to see a fair bit. I will be honest, I kind of checked out at the finals because watching Esper versus... or watching Domain Ramp versus Blue White Control, I think it was, does not sound great. I'll be honest, it just doesn't. But it was cool watching a lot of the Magic over the weekend. The decks were interesting. Watching Kibler's 5-color wild thing was fun. I got to play with that in Arena a little bit. But overall, I think what we saw was the limited format is just as hard as we've been discussing it. You know what I mean? Every pro player felt like they were like either struggling or I hope I open good or I need to get lucky. And a lot of the things that we've been talking about in terms of the way a lot of those limited games were playing is exactly how they played out. And some of the cool, fun things in Standard, some of it being like obviously Esper, whatever, but there were some neat decks and ultimately Domain Ramp got there, and Domain Ramp has not been a very played deck over the past little bit.
Yeah.
I feel like if the players would have had an extra like 2 weeks, I almost feel like, because I mean, I guess they only had like a week to submit their deck list.
Yeah, they like
which I would rather the Pro Tour. Yeah, I'd rather the Pro Tour be closer to the beginning of the season. But the more I looked at it, I was like, man, I feel like the format for them would have looked different if they could have tested for another week or two. Because like playing standard every day on Arena, like I've built a bunch of things, I've seen a bunch of things. There are definitely even more options than we saw the players play. And I think, and it from the couple I've gotten to talk to, it sounds like they sort of settled on Esper for a lot of people because it was like the most well-rounded one, and they had an immediate sideboard plan that seemed okay if they didn't know what they were up against. If somebody had like a weird bird, they thought, which, you know, makes sense, right? You take the safe option if you don't have anything just outright better. But there's still a lot of options, I think. So while this was still a pretty diverse field, I think Standard's still probably 3 times as big as far as option from what we saw.
Oh,
there are some absolutely hilarious cards that are playable in Standard. You would think that with 3,300 cards legal in the format, the barrier for entry would be higher. But no, in fact, if anything, I think the barrier for entry is lower. There's just some cards I would have never considered Standard playable seeing play because they aren't good at most things, but they're very good at the one thing you need them to do, right? There are some, like the Pro Tour winning card, Imidane's Recruiter, ladies and gentlemen. You know, there's every
in a non-token / non-creature deck,
right?
Effectively.
Right. And Chad helped me remember what this lady's last name is. It was Nicole something. I can't remember her last name. But Nicole had played in like an RCQ sort of randomly, won it, went to her first Pro Tour, was 1 win away from top 8, was in a win and in.
Tipple, thank you, Nicole Tipple. Tipple. Yeah,
and I was just like, man, that was a great, like, and they were playing 4-color Legends, which was super rad.
Which is the Slugurk deck.
Oh, and it was so cool to watch her play because there's a bunch of little tiny interactions that she was doing just right, like triggering Inti at her instep so that she would have the whole next turn to play it, you know, again. Just really cool stuff. Fantastic.
Ruben, you would be excited because Caustic Bronco made an appearance and is actually playable.
Where?
Yeah, I'll show you a list after.
In Rafine? Is it in this Rafine deck?
No, it was a black-white deck.
Nice.
Also, it was in Reed Duke's black-green deck.
Hell yeah.
And they dinged people for 15 with that big 13 cost thing that, like, you can cast it if the cost goes down as you lose life or whatever, the big 7/7.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's really bad.
Shadow of Interference or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I played that on Arena and I got to ding somebody.
Amazing.
It's the best feeling in the world.
That's hilarious.
Well, surprised nobody. Reed Duke didn't play that version. He played the straightforward rock version, but
okay, fine.
It was still Dark Confidant, you know, it still felt like Dark Confidant, and that's never a bad thing. So that was neat. And yeah, I think I was watching Jim Davis, and Jim Davis was like, if we just had one more week, we really probably could have brewed something like really neat and interesting.
Sure.
And they all just kind of like, well, Esper's good. You know, it's not amazing, but it'll get you there. And that's just kind of what they ended
And it did.
I was thinking 2 weeks.
People there.
But he says 2 weeks. I'll trust his judgment. Like he was in the trenches.
One of the things that was, as far as I know, I believe this is brand new. They made a point that whenever anyone's name showed up, they showed their pronouns with them.
Sure.
And I thought that was just neat. And it's just something that it took until, you know, April 2024 before that started happening on coverage, but it did, and I thought that was neat. However, the other side of that is that Twitch probably needed more mods. Apparently, there were a lot of people dead naming and doing horrible stuff in the chat and wasn't being caught.
Sure.
Not super surprised there. There is some. Go ahead.
No, you're good. This is just, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of stuff. It's good that it happened. Yeah, no other comments.
If anybody from Wizards is listening, if you need more mods, I'm sure there's a couple of us you can hit up that watch throughout the weekend that we do it for cheap or free just to keep the peace because we know the pain that comes with being on stream. So hit us up. Just give us access.
It's tough because, you know, this is that dangerous sort of line of why would they want to pay someone if people are trying to do it for free? This is where we're at sort of the pre-release, which is, well, if they can't pay for those flights and hotels or whatever, what do? Well, they'll just do it anyway. And that's tough because Pharmacist Judge noted they definitely have a history of not paying their mods. And then I believe there was a history of them actually paying their mods. And then I don't even know where that ended up at this point.
My thing is, if you're going to give me access and I can just do it leisurely as I'm free, then cool. If you want me to be there for the whole event, then yes, there's a fee.
Oh, for sure. If we're on a time schedule, yes, we'll need to payment. At one point, there was a sort of a focus on the fact that a lot of people were falling off the Pro Tour. In particular, Nathan Stour, former world champion, literally his card just came out in Outlaws, and it's great, which is fun as well. But yeah, their Pro Tour performance unfortunately kind of fell off, and all of a sudden they're out of the Pro Tour, which is kind of silly, and brought a lot of people saying that they want Grand Prix back, not just because it's an additional way to get points and stay on the train and blah, 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 but also, there's that sort of high level competitive camaraderie that you have and that feeling of going to those big events that we have completely lost. Like, it's at this point, we only can reminisce about the Grand Prix circuit, and Command Fests and Magic Cons that have some large events at them, or some high, dollar events at them, are not taking the place of GPX, GP Dallas, GP Columbus, GP Atlanta, all that stuff where you would go because you're there for high level Magic one way or another.
You're not wrong.
It's a weird thing, right? Where I think most Magic players would rather win a Pro Tour and then fall off forever than stay on the train forever but never get a top 8, right? Like, it's there, and there are people who have both careers. There are people who just spiked the Pro Tour and then didn't do anything else.
Wow, that's funny you say that. Because like, I'm sitting here thinking, like, I've fortunately been able to play on the Pro Tour, but I think you're right. I think if I could top 8 or win one, that would be better than me just making the next like 7 Pro Tours.
Funny you should say that. Autumn Burchett, who won, I believe it was called a Mythic Championship at the time.
Yeah.
They fell off the Pro Tour, going 9-7 in the main event, which was like 1 win short of qualification. They stayed and played in the PTQ the next day, got to the finals and lost, which made them not catch their flight. So they had a $600 fee for that. So if you want the daggers on the daggers on the daggers, Autumn knows that like this is probably their last Pro Tour. They are not going to be sort of chasing this dream anymore. Why? Because there's no real path there further.
Right.
And what would they want? What should they be doing to try to offset this? You know what I'm saying? It's back to RCQs
again. There's
RCQs. You can qualify through Arena. You can qualify through Magic Online. Like there are paths.
But what's the incentive to do it?
Sure.
Like, that's the thing and this is the thing that we've been talking about forever, is what is the incentive to continue to be on the Pro Tour, or to get back on the Pro Tour? And I think it's fine for people. It's also fine for people to just move on from the game. Like, if it's not in the cards for you, then go, you were a success. You won a championship. You're demonstrably very good at this.
Yeah.
Play with your friends and go make a living doing something that will reward you for being good at it.
Yeah, this feels very much like perspective or where you are in life, right? Because there was a point, and I think we all were at that point at some point in the past, where we would just grind because you wanted to be on the Pro Tour, right? And you wanted to have that top level competition, and you wanted to get the money and quotes fame that came with being on the Pro Tour, right?
Right.
But now I'm kind of like, if I'm free on the weekend, I might hit up a PTQ once or twice a year, and if I spike one, great. But it's fine. Like, like it's just a different level of motivation. I the bigger issue I have, and we talked about this in the pre-show a bit, is I think there should be some type of, I guess the best word would be protection for world championship winners and Pro Tour winners.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe you win the world. I think what I said in the pre-show is like, win worlds, you're qualified for the next 8 events. So 2 years. Or if you win a Pro Tour, you're qualified for the next 4 events, which would be 1 year. And that feels like the easiest solution to at least guarantee, like, hey, your winners are at least still here.
Right. I think
and everybody else is grinding through.
There is something like that, isn't there? Like, if you win Worlds, you get a year's worth or something.
I think you qualify for Worlds again. I think
just Worlds again. Interesting. Yeah. I think
you probably have enough points to stay on the tour otherwise anyway at that point. But
and they certainly should. I would suggest that the Hugh Jensens of the world, look at these things and be like, look, man, it's your circuit. You can do whatever you want with it. If you give out invites, it's not going to matter. And as we know, it's not going to matter to enough people for anything to relatively actually happen. And there's the extreme, end of that where someone in chat says, let the Pro Tour die. WotC clearly isn't interested in it like they were in the past. I would say that they are still putting on a good show. They are still there with the production crew. Does it have exactly the same people it used to? No. Does it have BDM as the historian and Paul Chi on there? No. But I think they did crack the format by getting, if you watched any part of the weekend, except the finals, you never saw anyone mulligan. You never saw anyone sideboard. You got to the action every time. Now, you would still have to wait as they played through it and so on, but none of those loading screens between games ever happened until the very, very end of the event. And I think that's brilliant. I think that's the best way to do things, and they've cracked that format.
This is one of those things where the other events that have been happening, the arena championships, the big charity events we see, whatever, they're just taking learnings from a lot of those. Yeah. Right. They see how those have been done, even with whatever we want to call the time walked events or whatever. So they're a little delayed so you can get the full games and the full rounds. Right. All of that is stuff that kind of came from all these other events happening. So at least they're watching it all and saying hey, this worked for them, or people really like this. We should incorporate that. And you're seeing a lot of that come to the forefront. So I agree with you. The show is still really, and I think we forgot that this was actually the Seattle Pro Tour that didn't happen at a major event. And people weren't sure if they're going to be able to pull it off without the pomp and circumstance and the crowds and everything else. And it still looked pretty good. They did a pretty good job over the weekend. Yeah.
I mean, while I too love gallivanting the planet, I would not suggest they do that. I would have a Pro Tour center. We've talked about this many times, but have a Pro Tour center. That's where the Pro Tours are held. Create these things, build out the infrastructure so you don't have to spend all this money, send everybody around the world. They go down the street. Mark Rosewater can show up just like he did for this Pro Tour.
I honestly think World should be in Wizards' backyard every year.
Absolutely.
Somewhere in the greater Seattle area or whatever. That just makes sense to me.
Right. Your entire company, your entire R&D division is right there, but you don't want to have them right there. While it's cool, again, I feel like there's so much of this weird old cruft is not the right word, but just kind of the way that we did things, and the way that you did things was the Pro Tour had to be all over the world because it's the $1 million Pro Tour all over the planet. When in actuality, you can still put on a great show in your backyard, and they just proved it.
You know what it's like? It's like the Olympics, where for a long time, everybody gets a bid, and we get to have the Summer Olympics and the Winter Olympics. And then there was this whole thing about why is it not in Greece, I think in 2000. And they were like, because y'all probably don't need to be hosting an Olympics. And then they were like, okay, we'll give you the next one. And then Greece is still in debt from hosting the Olympics.
Right.
So it's just not every place. And, yes, it's nice to be recognized and they put a thing there. But sometimes.
Yeah, but the Little League World Series is in the same place every year. And it's great.
Oh, yeah. In Pennsylvania every year or whatever. Yeah.
Right. If you make it sort of a mecca destination, if you make it to where people from the public could have a little seating area or a little crowd area or something, you can build all that in. You can refine that and work on that and iterate on that every single time till you really get this down to a science. They have so much of it down to a science. Just stop, pushing people over the world. Because I can tell you, it costs a crap load of money to send people all over the world and these production crews and all these contractors when you could just do it right there. I don't
MagicCon Seattle, MagicCon Vegas every year. You can pick 2 spots for the other 2.
And then put one on the East Coast and put one in Europe.
Yep. And we just put
one in Japan.
Pro Tours at all those. There you go.
Well, if we have any sort of Wizards ears, to me I would just focus on CEDH at this point. Get CEDH in the stores, push CEDH things, try to have people dip their toes in a competitive format of a format they're already playing, because Commander is the largest format not closed. They are all of the Invisibles. They have been playing it this whole time. And CEDH has been exploding. Our first pick last week was how it has completely ballooned all over constructed formats, bigger than Modern when Modern was supposed to be bigger than everything, bigger than Pioneer when Pioneer was crushing everything. No, CEDH is where it's at. I want to see CEDH basically given more respect, as it were, because it took a long time for Commander to get respect, in my opinion. And I think they should not be so slow on the uptake when it comes to a competitive version of that format.
Okay. I agree. I like the argument.
I dig it. All right. So let's move on here to something that my teenage daughter will absolutely love. And if you don't know who Hatsune Miku is, you don't, but it's like Gem and the Holograms, but it's also like it's like the Gorillas, if you need a more timely reference. But basically it is a cartoon pop star, and she is super duper popular. And let me tell you, this secret lair is not made for dollars. The secret lair is made for people who like Hatsune Miku, because the cards in it are not worth that much. But you know, she's been thrilling fans with her digital performances as a virtual singer. My teenage daughter plays no less than 3 rhythm games with this girl's music in it. 3 different games.
Bro, let me tell you this.
Huge.
I've been seeing this character when I'm like, I go to the mall and we pass by like a game shop or an anime shop or whatever, and you see these statues and action figures, and I'm like, all right, cool. I assumed it was just some random anime thing. It was just like, all right, cool. It's some anime thing I don't know about. But man, when they announced this thing, man, my Twitter feed blew up. Like, people were excited about this. And I'm like, oh, that's what that's called.
Oh, yeah. Last year, I didn't know what it was either. Last year, I bought a figurine of Hatsune Miku. Had no idea who this was. It's just what my daughter said, I want this. And I was like, that's kind of a cool, anime character. Why not? But she's all about it. But to go over this exactly, what I want to know.
Wait, somebody said Miku was at Coachella?
So Miku was invited to Coachella.
Okay.
They tried to do a holographic thing.
They tried to. Well, also that was the year the pandemic started. So they were going to, but this character I'm seeing here has done 5 performances live.
Okay.
Again, it's that kind of digital VTuber type thing.
Right.
Well, look, the cards are Shelter, Chandra's Ignition, Harmonize, Asuza Lost But Seeking, Feather the Redeemed, and Inspiring Vantage. That's a total value of maybe $12. You're not buying this because the cards have that kind of value. You're buying it because it's her for as long as they have it on sale. They're going to be doing apparently 4 of these things, 1 for each season. I don't blame them, because if you're going to get on the Hatsune Miku train, you might as well just ride it all the way in. And like I said, I can't wait to get this for my daughter, even if she doesn't even play Magic, because I know she's going to love this. So
I have a couple of things. For $30, this might be a reasonable investment. Now, this is just me talking. This is not the words of anybody else saying you need to buy this and invest in it, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it does have Inspiring Vantage, which some people may want to go out and try to get a set of 4 of those things.
Sure.
Right? It's got Azusa, which shows up in a lot of things. And
$5 card.
If this is limited, this is going to be sold out in an hour.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, I've got to be there ready whenever it starts selling, so I can possibly get one and be done with it, because they're not going to last long. The weaves are going to be out, and this is going to be flying out the door.
I could picture this being a set of cards that people will want to collect for the whole next 2 years. Like, I can see this easily being $30 when you buy it. Could probably be $65, $75 in a year's time for the set.
Easy.
This is just not the corner of the world I exist in. I have never heard of this character.
I agree.
Nor have I, but I understand money.
No, I mean, I totally get that.
Right. And
I'm on board with you there.
Yeah. And to me, figuring out like how huge Hatsune Miku is like, it's like when I got into like One Piece last year, when I was like, oh, One Piece is cool, right? 1,000 episodes of television. You know what I mean? Where you're like, oh my God, the fandom is huge. Her fandom is ridiculous.
Dude, it's crazy. Like I said, I've known this was famous, and I knew, like, if I saw the character, I knew it was a thing.
Oh yeah.
I just didn't know anything about it. I just knew people that were into it were way into it because it was everywhere.
Oh yeah. Let's see if we can quickly move here through our last little bits. Ultimate Guard has announced that they are going to create a new partnership with Hasbro and Wizards, starting with Bloomburrow. They're going to make products alongside Ultra Pro, as I understand. This isn't replacing them. This is competition. And, for what it's worth, I think that's a good thing. I think Ultra Pro could use some competition, quite frankly. And I also know that Ultimate Guard makes really sweet stuff. So there's going to be a butting heads there. And I am, for the first time in a very long time, pretty excited to see what supplies are coming with Bloomborough as a result.
Yeah. This has been some writing on the wall as it pertains to Ultra Pro not being the only voice in the room for a couple of years. So this is good. I mean, they make good products from what I understand. I've never had one myself. A lot of people are sponsored by them, and a lot of people who are sponsored by them, when they stop being sponsored, they still use the products. So that speaks to quality.
Yeah, I feel like on a weirdly professional level, there's probably things I need to talk about off camera.
Okay.
Involving this. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
All right.
Either way, this is
We'll leave it out for now.
right. This is definitely a huge sort of change, that we've seen. Anyone else getting into this game in the supplies game is very interesting.
Honestly, being real though, I don't know how new companies consider getting into the supply game at this point, because I feel like there's basically 5 companies or so that just kind of make a good version of everything. So it's just like,
there is some strides being made right now by Heavy Play.
they're the one and they're doing stuff different at least.
They
so
are
like
literally products I've never seen before. Whereas Ultimate Guard was, that's a bigger version of this. Or
exactly
a skinned version, a Xeno skin that's like thermal skin, reacting or whatever. But it's not different. Whereas Heavy Play has sleeves that have curves on the bottom, and that is
I just find it
I've
interesting.
never
I feel
done
like every year somebody's like, "Oh, have you seen this box or this sleeve?" And I'm like, "Well, they're just like the same as everything else we have. Like, why would you not use the thing you already know works?"
Right.
Like, I'm not buying a new brand to have the same thing. But like you said, with Heavy Play, it's all about their design and their magnets and whatever. And it's like, all right, you're bringing a different product to the table.
Right. Let's bounce over here into just a little bit of splash damage. I wanted to note here really quickly of the largest TCG tournament ever that breaks the Guinness World Record with 7,443 participants. Y'all, I ain't really done with that. To give you an idea of how actually huge this was, there was something like 20. There was a raffle to play in this event. Something like 25 or 35,000 players signed up to play in this event and had to get lucky to play in it.
That's crazy.
That's how big Yu-Gi-Oh is. It is ginormous. And thank you, Tappy Toe Claus, for the raid. We appreciate that.
Hey.
Absolutely.
Hey, Tappy.
Yeah, and of course we're not talking about Magic. We're talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! And how it had an event with 7,000 players. And, Magic's had an event with 5,000 players. And it was cool. But,
I guess technically we had one with 6,000, 6,400 or whatever that number was.
That was Las Vegas, right? And then New Jersey was 5K and Las Vegas was like 6,400. And, but that's as big as we could basically get. It wasn't like we were turning people away. We had to do a raffle for the last seats or whatever. That was as many as signed up as we could. Whereas in Yu-Gi-Oh! Over in Tokyo, man, tens of thousands were being turned away. And that's incredible, quite frankly.
Yeah. I would also say, though, the card game market is definitely different in Japan for sure.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things, and I don't know if I ever told this on the show, but one of the things that happened when I was there, one of my jobs was dealing with all the international teams and just keeping tabs on what's going on in local stores or whatever. Mm-hmm. And inevitably, we would talk to, say, the South American team. And they're like, oh, we kind of like this for our stores or our players, whatever. And then we talk to Australians. And they'd be like, oh, it'd be cool if we could have this fun thing or whatever. And the Japanese were like, competitive this, need this thing, whatever. Always, every single time.
Promo.
They just... Yeah, they just have a whole different market when it comes to competitive card games. And their rankings will shift month to month sometimes, too. So, people don't know that the old Kaijudo or whatever they call it over there is still a thing.
Duel Master.
Right? It's in their top 3, sometimes number 1 for a couple months. So it's very interesting. If there was going to be a record-breaking event, it makes sense that it would have been in Japan.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's where you see Wizards doing a lot of promo type stuff. They did the special War of the Spark boxes that had those Japanese promos because Japan is an incredible market. Like if they latch onto something, particularly cards, because they're small and they're lightweight, and Japan doesn't have a lot of space for everybody, so you can fit a lot of cards in a lot of very small space. So they go nuts over card games, and yeah, when it hits big. And congrats to them. And Yu-Gi-Oh is a weird game that I'm not really into. So
yeah,
I find,
but
their shows and stuff still drive dollars. I mean, it's crazy, but
still do.
That's the one thing I will say about Magic that's always surprised me is its competitors, if you will, have other licenses that are driving it, right? And somehow we've gotten all the way here with just Magic being Magic, which seems insane.
Yeah, when your competitors are driven by big IPs, that's hard.
Has Yu-Gi-Oh incorporated other IPs into Yu-Gi-Oh?
Other than
except for like a random promo thing here or there, but not as like a regular.
But not like as a set or even like a special deck or something. Just sort of.
I don't think so.
All right. Well, let's turn the corner here to the finisher. From the world of Among Us, Untitled Goose Game, and Ooblets, the hot new Steam indie game of this week is Another Crab's Treasure, a Souls-like adventure game where you play a hermit crab looking for better and better shells. It's a cool visual reminder of your progression from bottle cap and shot glass all the way to stuff like a disco ball or, a gun, because of course. So tell me, what new shell would you climb into when you level up next, Ruben?
By the way, for the Raiders, this is how we end the show. We do a little joke at the end about something in the news in Magic. And now we read punchlines. 40 is coming up fast for old Ruby. So when I level up to my 5th decade, I'm hoping for an upgrade into a pink necktie and a brown pork pie hat, because ultimately my ideal form is just Fozzie Bear. I just want to be Fozzie Bear.
Fozzie Bear.
Just human Fozzie Bear.
That's a good throwback.
Power Dragon?
All right, so ready to face the future. We're going to level up. Because I've done basically everything in Magic at this point. You're talking about hosting, designing, running a business. But there is something I haven't done yet. So I'm going to go get me a red flannel and let the rest of these grays come in. And we're going to prepare you for dark rosewater.
And we cleared that in the pre-show.
It's time for the Drive to Work podcast.
That's right. Now, look, my final form is clear, and whether I like it or not, it's coming, because you don't become a great cat dad and an awesome 5 kids dad without fully expecting to become a granddad. I'm not, by the way.
I see what you did there.
Just so we're clear, but I do appreciate that, and that's
not
fine.
Yet. I'm saying you're later. When you're upgrading your shell
as we get there.
Yeah.
And that ends another live episode of Magic Mike's. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Power Dragon.
Hey, it's always good to be here, and I will definitely be in the Stater trenches the rest of the week.
Oh boy, thank you, Ruben.
Thank you. And I've checked. I hope these guys are not going to stop playing right now. They are currently streaming.
I put in all caps.
We're gonna raid
someone actually online.
We are going to raid someone actually online playing Magic.
Oh my god!
Thanks to the raiders. Thanks to the chatters. Thank you all for showing up. We're a weekly Magic the Gathering news show where we chatter about the week that was in MTG. Please do join us again. Sometimes we will raid Tappy, and sometimes Tappy will raid us, and that's very nice of her.
That is fantastic. As we move on here to our final slide, I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com. Use the promo code MagicMikes to check out. Our co-sponsor, Mana Traders, my co-host, Power Dragon and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at patreon.com/MagicMikes. Please follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us on our exclusive member Discord, live on twitch.tv at MagicMikes, live or taped on our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at MagicMikesCast, and join our TikTok at MagicMikesCast, or join us here next week. Same time, same place for another episode of Magic Mike's. Good night, everybody.